Yeah, hello everybody to this We Think Security podcast today. I have with me Lieutenant Colonel retired Nick NJ Jost, who flew in the US Navy, the Legacy Hornet, and then later in his life in the Air Force Reserves, the F-16, and he is now a consultant in aerospace, maritime, and defense, and he lives in Vienna. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, Ingo. Thanks for having me today. A little introduction. Nick Jost, call sign NJ. I've spent 20 years in the U.S. Armed Forces. I started my career in the Naval Reserve as a FA-18 Hornet pilot and later transferred to the Air Force Reserve, initially flying the F-16 Viper and later on the C-21 Learjet. I have also worked as a forward air controller, airborne and on the ground.
Super. Can you tell me shortly how you got your call sign? There any good story
as
behind
call
it?
signs go, I did something stupid as well to earn it. We were on a air-to-air dogfighting training sortie when I called no joy, meaning I don't see the opponent, because I did not see my adversary flying directly behind and somewhat underneath me, scoring a direct gun hit. The letters NJ also resemble my initials, so the call sign stuck.
Okay.
I like that one far better though than the initial unofficial call sign I first had, which was inappropriate, but it fit for obvious personal circumstances.
Okay, cool. And I understand you live now in Vienna.
True. Yes, I've been living in Vienna for about 10 years now.
Ah, yeah, super. Cool. So yeah, thank you very much for joining the podcast. Today's topic is going to be, we want to look a little bit about a potential naval confrontation with China. So in this We Think series of podcasts, we want to look at this area of operation and do a little bit of crowd wargaming. So interviewing different experts from different countries, backgrounds, and see a little bit if we can forecast what a potential conflict could look like, and what does it mean, what kind of strategy recommendations we can derive for of course the US and its allies, but also the EU. Yeah, so yeah, very happy to have you here. And basically let's just jump directly in. So I would be interested to kind of hear your opinion. What would be your take? What could be the most likely scenario for a naval or air confrontation with China? So how high is the possibility that it's going to happen? What could be the time frame? And what would it maybe also mean for the EU and NATO?
Well, as far as the geographic area goes, I guess the area of operation will most likely be the South China Sea. As far as when could it happen, it's a good question. I'd say it's somewhere between 2025 and 2030. As long as Xi Jinping will be in office, I'd say a direct military conflict is possible to happen before 2030. Chinese leadership should change in the meantime for whatever reason. Hopes are that a more moderate leader will take command and continue the more moderate and liberal course of Xi Jinping's predecessor, Hu Jintao.
Yeah.
Regarding the question, what systems will be available then? For example, anti-ship ballistic missiles, UAVs. Well, definitely more advanced weapons that are currently being designed, tested, and evaluated, like hypersonic missile systems, more guided missile cruisers, and possibly more aircraft carriers, maybe even nuclear powered. There are no limits to the ingenuity of Chinese weapon building companies. Nothing stands in the way of the Chinese military buildup. How likely is it to happen? That changes daily. Currently, probably around 50-50. Immediately after an event like a high-ranking US politician visiting Taiwan, or vice versa, or after so-called airspace violations, tensions might escalate and the likeliness of an immediate conflict rises.
Yeah.
Why would it happen? Well, full-scale conflict over Taiwan, invasions, or maybe a more hybrid, small-scale conflict over the Spratly Islands, well, both scenarios are likely to happen. An invasion of Taiwan has already been announced to happen before 2050.
Yeah.
The United States will never let Taiwan down, so a conflict is already expected. The question regarding the Spratly Islands is a bit different, though. China will not face a single opponent in this case, like with the planned annexation of Taiwan, but will be fighting with the neighboring countries, Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Brunei for the islands. What would it mean for the European NATO countries and the EU? No direct involvement, as long as the US support Taiwan financially and militarily. The NATO Charter defines a geographical zone where Article 5 is applicable. More or less, if an attack occurs on a member country in North America, Europe, or Turkey, partly in Asia, or an island in the North Atlantic, north of the Tropic of Cancer, Article 5 can be triggered on the request of the attacked member, which explains why NATO was not involved in the Falklands War, for example. Article 5 is a commitment to protect the security of the North Atlantic. If the US is attacked by China, NATO will secure the North Atlantic against any Chinese attack. NATO Charter does not require NATO countries to defend the US West Coast. If the US attacks China, the US cannot trigger Article 5 support. Since it is unlikely that a war between the US and China is going to be fought in the North Atlantic, it is unlikely that NATO would be involved. Countries that are NATO members can certainly join the US if they think it is in their interest, but the NATO Charter does not bind them to it.
Okay, yeah. Do you see maybe a certain risk that in the event that China that there's a conflict happening between the US and China, that Russia will maybe or any other actors, maybe Iran or North Korea, will kind of do this, join, take the opportunity because maybe the US is distracted?
That might be very well the case. I mean, as we have currently seen with the conflicts going on around the world and the recent conference of the BRIC state, where you see that China and Russia and India are working together closely economically, but do have different military interests. We'll see how that will evolve. But of course, China or Russia is China's closest ally. North Korea is always a ticking time bomb, so to speak. So there's a possibility that those countries will also support China, of course.
Okay, yeah, understood. Maybe an additional follow-up question is maybe more looking into in the other domains, not military necessarily, but let's take the dime domains, political domain, diplomatic domain, economical domain. Is there, in your opinion, what could be courses of action in order to maybe avoid a conflict with China breaking out in the future? Yeah?
Well, the diplomatic, information, military, and economic, that DIME stands for, is, they always seek to avoid counterproductive and conflicting activities during tactical operations by considering these factors in a coordinated manner during mission planning and execution. This is a question for the leaders of the free world. Of course, the strongest way to achieve settlement is always diplomacy. Only through negotiations based on international law and taking international agreements and treaties into account can a solution be found that will guarantee a fair distribution of resources and unrestricted traffic routes in the South China Sea.
Okay. And the time frame, so we said if something is going to happen, it's going to be 25 to 30. Is that simply because China is not yet ready, or?
Exactly. I mean, they're currently building up a fleet, a naval fleet that will be ready to, be offensive and to reach their goals. But they're still, compared to the U.S. Navy and the allies, still a bit behind the technology. And the sheer not the manpower, but the amount of hardware that you need for this conflict. So they're going to take a couple of years at least, I would say 1 to 2 years, until they're really on that point where they can say we're ready to go. Yeah, everything before that would be pushing it. But I think next 5 years would be feasible. So from 2025 to 2030, I think we will see an increase of tensions and also unprovoked attacks. Just trying to, poke and see how far they can go with that.
Yeah, testing the waters. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So maybe if you go a little bit more into the operational tactical domain, let's say something happens. Maybe, as we said, the most likely scenario is going to be something over Taiwan. How would you say, what could be China's most likely and most dangerous courses of action, to stay in this military language? So what would they like to achieve, and how would they achieve it?
Yeah, well, good question. Well, the most likely course of action, or the which is the most dangerous course of action, of course, I think China is on its way to seek global hegemony and throw the West off its throne, especially the US. I mean, that's goal number one. US, Australia, and Japan would be the core of any alliance to defend Taiwan from an attack by China. Neighboring countries would have an interest as well protecting Taiwan. I don't see the surprise attack from happening simply because of the fear of retaliation. Let's not forget, China is facing the strongest and most technological advanced opponent on the planet. Chinese military leadership would most likely not make use of asymmetrical warfare, but rather be using older, proven tactics.
Okay, yeah.
Nevertheless, the US and its allies are prepared for any kind of warfare scenario. The use of anti-ship ballistic missiles, also known as carrier killers, and hypersonic weapons are anticipated and prepared for. There's a current threat, and yes, China is trying to make the best out of it, to be a bully, basically. And I think what they will see is just not a retaliation from the US alone, but from a coalition. And that's something that's probably unexpected or has not gone through up to chain of command yet. But there's several different scenarios that can happen. And of course, the action reaction thing, whatever you do, you will face a different scenario.
Would you think like a real invasion of Taiwan is actually a threat, or is it more going to be a conflict that for example, a US politician is visiting, and you will have maybe a strategic air attack campaign, or probably only maybe also only an isolation of Taiwan? Is that maybe a more likely threat than basically a full-scale invasion, because that seems to be quite risky? Yeah.
Well, the full-scale invasion would mean war. A large conflict, and trying to do step by step or slice by slice by doing airstrikes, or like I think I read today on the news that yesterday or a couple of days ago, China entered Taiwanese airspace multiple times. So that's what we're gonna see happening a lot of intrusion of other countries' airspaces, not just Taiwan, but also the other neighboring countries, just to kind of test the capabilities of the opponents as well. And that's also important for their research and development, to make that technological step forward to see what are the capabilities of the enemies, what kind of technology are they using, is it outdated, is it modern, state of the art, and where should our development go? Because obviously military technology costs a lot of money. Also the research and development, it takes years. And China has a budget as well, and trying to be dancing and or at multiple weddings, as we say, or trying to be present in different scenarios or threat scenarios is going to be very expensive for China as well. So I think they're just going to try go by trial and error. See whatever way goes better. If it's the airstrike, if it's you know, surface sea, if it's beneath the sea, if it's just ballistic missiles, you name it, you have it. Or old-fashioned artillery. A large-scale invasion is probably not so likely, because that would mean pretty much the end of it.
Yeah, yeah. The risk is probably pretty high. I mean, that's a little bit the same story with the Russian attack on Ukraine. Yeah, there is probably just it's very difficult just to kind of predict how this is gonna end, and very risky for the attacker in the end. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I was just wondering, I was just laughing. Is this a saying, dancing at multiple weddings? Is this a English saying as well? Because we have this in Austrian German.
No, I was thinking about the saying, but I think it's a German saying that I translated.
It is, no, it's Austrian.
To English. Yeah, that's what happens if you live too long abroad.
Yeah, cool. Good.
But I grew up trilingual, and that's sometimes I'm mixing up languages. It just, but I I got my point, so everybody understands it.
Super. So we say maybe what we see. What are the Chinese biggest strengths and weaknesses in a potential confrontation? So I think maybe we have said it's less likely it's going to be a full-blown invasion of Taiwan. Maybe it's going to be more a blockade. How would you say, what are the Chinese pros and cons there, strengths and weaknesses to do this?
Well, the strength is probably the manpower. They do have the world's largest military for personnel. Weakness is probably they're not that technologically advanced as they think.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Although there's been a lot of espionage, of course, in the past, and there's a lot of know-how that China has. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to go, how should I say that? You don't want to present all of your skills at once. You want to hold stuff back for the continuation of the conflict. If you go full blown whatever in the beginning, the enemy is just going to retaliate, and then you're going to be out of ammo, out of ships, out of airplanes. Yeah. So you got to use it wisely and also tactically. And I think it's there's a lot of wargaming going on. There's a lot of theories of what can happen and when that can happen. And I think there's a lot of think tanks right now in a lot of countries, trying to figure out something like a role play, basically, or like a script for war of how to cope with that conflict. And my experience is you have to have, you do have to have a lot of plans, backup plans, what if scenarios, what if this happens, then we're going to do this. But in the also speaking from experience, I mean, you can plan as much as you want. You have to be prepared for anything that comes and is being thrown at you. And war or conflicts have something, some factor of unpredictability, which means no matter how good you're prepared, there's always going to be something you're not prepared with. And then it's just then it's just the training and the communication and how well you work together. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths that the West or NATO or the US has. Actually, this joint warfare, not only between the sister services in the States, but also between its allies. They all speak the same language. There's a NATO standard. Training is similar. So no matter where you're from, you basically have the same standards, and that's going to be making things easier. Right? Yeah. But push comes to shove.
This may be still a weakness in the Chinese system. So I read that they very much did scripted exercise. I mean, I think I got away a little bit from this, but they had more the Soviet approach of scripting everything and not really training how to react to the chaos that's
But the biggest difference between Eastern and Western tactics are in the West, It's all about leadership and about making decisions. Also, at every level. And the Eastern or communist or socialist approach, whatever you want to call it, was that everything has to work up the chain of command, and then at the end you have a decision maker. So it takes time, to communicate through the chain of command, to get a decision that is final, and to communicate that back. Even having state-of-the-art communication, satellite technology, whatever, which expedites communication channels, it's still the thing that nobody actually wants to take a leadership role and decide something, because if it's the wrong decision, it's going to be the end of your career, possibly at the end of your life. So that's what everybody is scared about, making bad decisions that will backfire on them. I think that's going to slow them down.
Okay, yeah. So maybe we have looked a little bit at the Chinese side. How do you see the US and its allies? So that we said probably mostly Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the US responding. And do you see European NATO somehow involved? Yeah, that would be the next question. So maybe when we stick with the scenario with the blockade, that's probably, I think, one of the, it's a little bit maybe similar to what we always thought is going to happen with Russia and the Baltics, that they will make a short grab, and then we have the problem that we need to get in somehow, and they are already there.
Well, the quality of training has certainly improved from the past, but it's, for China, it's still far behind NATO standard training. What speaks for China's military, though, is sheer manpower. It's just quantity over quality. As far as command and control go, before engaging in a battle that features carriers or fighter jets, China will try to gain an advantage in the information sphere and to reduce confidence in the military systems of its adversaries, such as GPS and sensors. As far as tactics go, other military tactics include China engaging in highly publicized and large-scale cross-service military exercises, establishing military bases or potential dual-use facilities in neighboring countries to threaten a target, and building up or acquiring PRC military capabilities against targets. China acquires know-how and knowledge of Western tactics through various sources, mainly espionage. How would the U.S. and its allies respond? That is difficult to say. Reactions always depend on actions, and there are far too many different scenarios to discuss, which is beyond the scope of this discussion. Most important goal would be a free and open Indo-Pacific to ensure global trade and protect the international economy. An estimated $3.5 trillion worth of global trade passes through the South China Sea annually, which accounts for about a third of the global maritime trade. Another goal is to protect Taiwan and the sovereignty of neighboring countries in the region. That answer your question?
Yeah. Perfect. So okay. Maybe advancing on this, do you see when we say we need to kind of harden ourselves for a potential conflict in the future, which hopefully will not come, but what would you say strategy recommendations are for especially the US? Probably what maybe systems should they acquire? What tactics, maybe swarming of drones, or maybe training improvements or defense policy improvements do you see how to prepare for an eventual conflict?
Well, expanding the DCA umbrella of carrier strike groups through use of UAVs is a possibility, and it's already implemented. The use of unmanned aerial systems has increased and greatly enhances situational awareness and the combat radius, for example, the loyal wingman. So as far as UAS unmanned aerial systems go, they operate alongside fourth generation airframes and boost their capabilities sensor-wise and combat radius-wise, and enhance their situational awareness as well. Since you mentioned the drones, well, alongside fifth generation airframes to operate under the scope of stealth and use superior sensor capabilities, real-time battlefield information that is already being done, implemented.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big discussion also, in the West and NATO countries right now. A lot of NATO countries are replacing their fourth generation aircraft with fifth generation aircraft, the F-35, the Joint Strike Fighter, and that is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, investment in NATO's history. It's going to be a process that takes several years, and what's going to happen in the meantime until the fifth generation aircraft are fully operational is you're going to be working alongside already combat proven fourth generation fighters, as we see nowadays, be it for air policing or for various missions. And the goal is, of course, to have a fully capable and operational fifth generation fleet, but that's going to be taking a couple of years until it's implemented.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The biggest goal about switching from fourth to fifth generation is not just the stealth capability, but it's sensor fusion. So what that means is those aircraft are real-time interconnected with any key player in the battlefield, basically. Be it command and control, be it reconnaissance, intelligence. Those airframes are able to detect things in the air, on the ground, far beyond the capability of the enemy to do the same. So you're going to have just a technological advancement, basically, of knowing more than your enemy and being, having to step forward, being more prepared in whatever happens. And that's also true in any other branches of the military, not just in the air forces, but also on the ground forces, on the ship sensors, navies, submarine, you name it, you have it. It's all interconnected, and that's where you have the technological leap forward, and that's why it's important to stay at least one technology generation ahead of the adversaries. Well, it's some people call it the arms race, but it's also to secure and provide the free world from being oppressed, as we have unfortunately seen last year. It's still very much a big possibility in times like these. Don't take it for granted.
Okay, good. Yeah, maybe a provocative question. Do you see like carrier aviation today? Is it kind of on a backhand compared to maybe the Air Force and land-based bases because of vulnerability to these long-range strike systems, the carrier anti-ballistic missile, and then the long-range bombers, which is basically an old playbook from the Soviet Union in reality,
I would say no, because Air Force bases or ground bases are just as vulnerable. They cannot move. I think they don't have the tactical advantage of being mobile. You cannot move a base, basically.
Yeah.
Base is stationary, whereas a carrier task group constantly moves. It's spread out over a very large piece of sea, and it consists of a lot of different vessels, surface ships, submarines, frigates, you name it, you have it. And you have the technical advantage of, being mobile. And since you have, sensors and eyes and ears everywhere, you pretty much know when something is happening. Those hypersonic missiles, yes, they pose a big threat, those carrier killers that we've mentioned before. But there's also a lot of defensive systems on a carrier task group that I don't want to get into, too much detail for obvious reasons. But I would say the detection range is minimal, but there's several lines of detection in between. So if it should, if such a missile should hit a carrier or any vessel, that would be very bad and very dangerous. It would not necessarily mean the end of it, just for the fact how those ships are built. But it would be a very devastating, hit as well. And a lot of lives will be lost in that case, and that's why everybody is, putting so much emphasis on technology and on detection and on secrecy as well. But you have to be informed. You have to be on top of your game, basically, and that's what's being trained and implemented already.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Just maybe something I asked before. I forgot a little bit to ask it. What do you see the role basically of European NATO in such a conflict is probably pretty minimal, as we touched on in the beginning.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Like I've mentioned before, I mean, Article 5 is taking care of that. But NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so its primary area of operations is the North Atlantic region, and China or the South China Sea does not, fit into that area of operation.
Yeah. So maybe what we could see is sanctions from part of European NATO countries, or maybe help with ammunition production as we have now.
I think those sanctions will not be military based, but economically based, basically. And I think there's a big tendency already within not just NATO, but within the European Union to, how should I put that diplomatically, to basically get resources that were outsourced to China 20, 30 years ago back to Europe, basically. And I think that's going to be, or China sees that as a big threat. But in the end, it's also, it's trying to be competitive nowadays, trying to boost your own economy. If you outsource everything, if European companies outsource all of their knowledge, their know-how, and production manpower to Asia, what's going to happen is, or what happened in the meantime is, you actually lose workplaces in your home countries, and that's bad for your economy. So it took many years to understand that. Of course, it's those ideas, or why it happened, is mostly based on politics. And one thing I've that I came across so far is that usually, and I don't want to include everybody, but usually politicians are pretty narrow-minded when it comes to their actions. In the sense of politicians are elected for the duration of their legislation period, and they try to get reelected to stay in office as long as they can, to not always look forward to the best of their countries, but kind of like to set the track for their own personal future. That's that's where China, I think, is actually a bit ahead of the West. They have a different mentality, a different thinking. It's not the individual, it's the collective, which is not a bad thing. You don't have to be a communist to support that. But what politics or a government should do is to think in generations. And what our governments in the West do is they're narrow-minded. Like I said, they only think for a duration up to 4 to 8 years until they're in office, and they're trying to make as big a profit as they can. Whereas they should be thinking about the future generations. I'm not talking about just environmental issues. I'm talking about the economy. You want to strengthen your position, your marketplace. You want to be a strong competitor, basically, and produce goods and then exchange them on the open market. That's what you want to do. But you don't want to outsource all your manpower, your knowledge, your know-how to other countries so they can profit from that. That was the mistake that has been done 20, 30 years ago. And what the EU is doing now, or the West is doing now, is just trying to bring back everything that has been outsourced before. Not everything at once, of course, because that would most certainly be the economical death of China, which I don't think, because they still have a population of about 2 million to 2 billion feed and support. And I think the Chinese market, the domestic market itself, is huge. And also the neighboring countries. But thinking about global economy, it makes very little sense to have something produced on the other side of the world, then ship it back to the other side of the world. And is talking about the environmental issues of that alone, and just the waste of money, basically. I think there's better ways to do that in the future, and I think there's better ways to boost every country's economy by bringing back the manpower or the knowledge that has been outsourced previously.
Okay, thank you. I think that's from my side all of the questions I had. Anything that we missed, or anything some breaking strategy recommendation that you want to still publish to the world?
That would be a lot. That would be taking too long. And I think a couple of questions you had regarding tactics and the defense policy. Well, something to add is maybe the already existing network and current installations provide excellent protection and a relatively short reaction time, given the vastness of the area of operations. There is always room for improvement for the infrastructure, which is mainly a budget question. Mobility is the key factor, and that's why a strong, capable, and modern fleet is a key element. As far as training goes, since you had the question about acquiring 3D goggles for cost-effective mobile training, VR, virtual reality, and MR, mixed reality, are already being used in military training. Currently working with a Czech VR company that produces the world's most advanced VR and MR headsets and flight simulators, primarily for military pilot training. Virtual reality plays a very large role in today's military training, as you can pretty much simulate everything, from aircraft to tanks to close quarter warfare, submarines, ships, medical simulations, you name it, you have it. It is safe, cost-effective, environmentally friendly, and mobile. Making operational decisions based on command and control relies on information gathering. The decisions that will be made depend on reliable facts and intel gathered through various domestic and allied intelligence agency networks. Information warfare is the current way that we see in various other global conflicts. Propaganda and misinformation play a big role. Not every news can be shared with the public due to secrecy and security reasons. So I think that's it to wrap it up. So do you have any further questions?
Yeah, from my side, all good. I found this this project that you have with the 3D goggles very interesting. So how is this going? Can you give me some details on this?
It's going pretty good. I've been to Japan last year, to Malaysia this year on big expos. The hardware is currently being evaluated by several different NATO countries, also the US. The US military shifts to virtual reality training has already shifted a couple of years ago, and now it's basically just the fine-tuning of what kind of headset works with what kind of flight simulation and how to link everything together, because it's all highly technological and very advanced. But from a consumer end, basically, or from the Chinese end, I must say I was just blown away when I tried virtual reality for the first time. I thought it's a game toy kind of thing, but no, don't be fooled. This is it. I mean, it's incredible. If you're interested, you're invited to come visit the company in Prague to have a look at it and test the simulators and the VR headset. It's mind-numbing, really. It's amazing to see how far technology goes and what you can do in a positive way with technology. But let's not be fooled. You can also use it for any other reason. And yeah, that's something we should keep in mind.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for this very interesting podcast, and yeah, hope to see you in the future to discuss additional questions.
It was my pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.